Friday. Plus it gets a little weird if security and
Needs a formal introduction. All right, everyone, good afternoon, evening, not sure. Is this working okay? Wonderful. I appreciate everyone joining us this evening. I'm Brian Kurtz, I'm CEO of Downtown Tulsa Partnership, and this is the fourth quarter Public Safety Forum. This will be the last Public Safety Forum of 2025, and we'll get out a schedule for what 2026 looks like as well. For those who are attending for the very first time, this is an opportunity for general public, stakeholders, residents, businesses to learn a little bit more about efforts underway for public safety improvements throughout downtown. I have the honor of being joined at the podium by colleagues from Tulsa Police Department and Tulsa Fire Department. And I see EMSA in the back of the room as well, who's joining us. So we appreciate everyone who's here today. We're going to start off with Captain Shelley Seibert, who is with the Gilcrease Division and overseeing policing efforts in downtown Tulsa right now. She's the administrative captain for Gilcrease, but has the special role, and we're very excited about overseeing all of the incredible resource deployments and investments being undertaken in downtown at this time. I think after that, I will take over and provide a few additional comments before Chief Lemery from Tulsa Fire Department, overseeing emergency services, will provide some updates as well, and likely talking about the Alternative Response 2 team that has deployed in downtown since the last time that we convened a couple of months ago. So with that, we'll turn it over to Captain Shelley Seibert.
Taller than me, yeah. Hi, I'm Captain Shelley Seibert. I'm the Downtown District Commander, and I'm going to talk today a little bit about our changes downtown. If you weren't here last time, we'll just review that real quick. We'll talk about the crime reports and do some highlights of some arrests we've made. So last time I talked about how we were changing and strategizing downtown. We really started our new strategy July 1st, and anything I talk about today will be the third quarter, so July 1st to the end of September, when we talk about crime stats and comparing numbers. So our priorities downtown are violent crime. It's really like this for the police department. Violent crime, addressing that. And since the entertainment district's down here, that really means interdicting guns, addressing gun violence, and I think we've all seen over the summer some of the shootings that happened in the Blue Dome district, and so addressing violent crime, but it's really just across downtown. And then drug trafficking and drug-related crime. Drug trafficking, identifying the people that are coming down here, the drug dealers, the predators that come in from outside of downtown and sell their goods to people who are suffering with addiction issues. And then our property and public nuisance crimes. So this, like I said, is from July 1st to the end of September. These are 911 calls for service. So the third quarter calls compared to the same time frame over the last 2 years, the average for that. So what we've seen, and I hope that it's a result of our enforcement efforts, is a reduction, a 9% reduction in 911 calls for service. So those are, we're hoping that we're addressing the issue before the general public has to call 911. And 9% is a pretty significant number. And if you look up in the left corner, you'll see of this chart over here, it's when the calls are coming in. So there's a red area. That's Saturday night, Sunday morning during the entertainment district hours. So we see an increase, 50, 45, 50, 60 calls that come in during that time that we don't see incident reports for. So I'll get to that in a second. So how it works is you call 911, we record that in our CAD system. From that, police reports are generated if a crime's occurred. So those would be considered incident reports, which is what I'm talking about now. So then incident reports, if you look at the same corner, you'll see it's not red anymore, there's like 2 incident reports. So if you see over 4,000 calls come in and only a little over 700 reports are generated, the question is why is it like that? Why is there such a gap? And for calls that come in at 911, we may get a fight call. We get there. The people that were fighting ran off, so there's no victim, there's no incident report. We may get a call from you saying, hey, can you check this person who's screaming and yelling in public? We get there, either we can't find them or no crimes occur. So there's a lot of calls that come into 911 that require a police response and take up time, but never generate a police report. So that's kind of what you're seeing here. Now our incidents have gone up, they've doubled, and we talk about this. When you increase enforcement action, you increase incident reports because they're police generated. So I'll give you an example of that. A drug-related if we stop someone in a car and they have drugs on them, we're going to create that report ourselves. That's not something that comes to 911. So the more we do stops like that, the more incidents will go up. So you'll see the incidents have gone up are directly related to our arrest. So these are our arrests for the third quarter. We had 342 arrests, 106 citations. That's up over 200% when you compare that to the third quarter from the previous years. And that's really because we've refocused our strategy to a victims first strategy. We've deployed more resources downtown. We have a part-time bike patrol that's downtown right now. The chief and the mayor's office approved us to hire the part-time bike patrol 4 hours a day, 7 days a week. So right now they're operating Sunday through Thursday from 10 to 2, which is really those lunch hours when workers are out or business is being done downtown. And on Friday and Saturday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., when people go out for social hour or go to dinner. And as the winter comes in, we'll suspend that, but our plan is to bring that back next spring and summer. So what are these arrests that we're making? If you look at the chart that I have down here, I don't know how clearly you can see it, the top line, if you see the gold line, that's the difference. That's what we're doing now. The blue line is the previous, it's a comparative. So the top one is just miscellaneous arrests. Those are going to be the public nuisance type complaints. The public intox, the trespassing, the blocking the sidewalks, all the things that we get complaints about from downtowners about what's going on down here. If you look at each of those, you're going to see that narcotics has gone up 1,000%. So as we look at those violent crimes, the drug crimes, and the public nuisance crimes, and we prioritize those, all those categories have gone up. So numbers are numbers, so let me tell you about some stories. So if you follow our Facebook page, and I hope that you do, we do post a lot about what we do downtown there. These are some gun arrests. This is not the entertainment district guns. These are the regular, during the day, work day gun arrests that we do. So one of them was a gentleman who lived down by the railroad tracks who shot himself accidentally. And if you look at this firearm, you'll see why it's in a really terrible condition. It's rusted out. Anyway, he shot himself. Claimed he was shot. Through our investigation, we realized it was him, and that was his firearm, and he's a felon, so we did do a charge on him. I think he'd been in Tulsa maybe 3 or 4 weeks at that time. We get questions about this too. I put 2 stories up here because one is about a illegally parked car, and the other one's about a scooter on a sidewalk. Sometimes we're asked why we are enforcing minor infractions, what people would consider that. Well, our downtown enforcement unit is made up of enforcing minor infractions because those are the types of complaints we receive from the people who live and work down here, and they ask us to do that. But also, policing experience tells us that there are other things going on. So for this illegally parked car, we get paid to be nosy. Like, why is that over there? What's going on? That's us. And so the officers see a car parked up on the sidewalk, they want to see what's going on. This gentleman, he's 19 years old, had this handgun, which is illegal at that age. And so we were able to seize that. And then the other one, someone was on a scooter on a sidewalk, which I've heard lots of complaints about from downtown. And some other gentleman handed him off a suitcase. Officers, what is that? That seems strange. So they stopped the guy on the scooter for that violation. The man who handed off the suitcase came up during the stop and grabbed the suitcase and took off running. So of course we were able to stop him, and inside the suitcase was the stolen firearm, and the man was a felon. He admitted that pistol was his. So these are some of the types of work that we do downtown to address violent crime. Here are some high profile arrests you may have seen on the news about a graffiti vandal named Mango. I don't know if you've seen his stuff around town. He does a lot of stuff at the Riverside Division, and it was the Riverside Division that ultimately arrested him and was able to identify him. So currently we're working investigations along that. Really working with downtown partnerships that clean up graffiti all the time. We do have a graffiti abatement grant for downtown that we use to clean up this stuff. We also work with the fire marshals. I talk about fire department all the time because I love them, everyone does. We work with them, and you may have seen this car that was set on fire some months ago. That gentleman also set like trash cans on fire. He's a convicted arsonist, and the fire marshals were able to identify him and arrest him, and we work in conjunction with him. And I also put this up here because this is a burglary arrest we got from these gentlemen breaking in twice to the Dollar General store. One of the guys, the John Whitson, was the most arrested person for the quarter. He had 6 arrests. We kept arresting him, and they were public nuisance arrests. But you can see how those types of things he ends up doing a burglary. And he has a long history too. So we were able to get that, and that's with, Captain Weekly's in the back. That was her people that did that. I supervise what's called the impact unit, and it's our downtown enforcement unit. It's a proactive unit. They don't take 911 calls for service. They see something, they address it, hopefully to prevent the 911 calls. Captain Weekly and the other patrol commanders, the patrol officers respond to those 911 calls when you call. And so we have really improved our communication with the patrol officers and the impact unit to streamline identifying suspects and apprehending them before that case ever goes to the detective division. Once that goes to the detective division, the detective has to work backwards to identify those people. So I think we're doing a better job of working together to get that done to support the detective division. Some of the other things we see downtown, I have up here is an indecent, you don't see a picture with it because it was 2 people having sex in public, so I spared you the pictures on that. But we do get complaints about that, and we have increased our enforcement about any kind of open urination, defecation, sex in public, any of those things. So we've seen it'll look like there's more incidents because we're doing more enforcement. I wanted to talk about something else, community collaboration. So I try to always highlight this because we do not work in a vacuum. We have to work together. As we become more focused on what we're doing as a police department and staying on mission and putting victims first and addressing crime, when we address root causes of crime and social determinants of health or crime prevention, we have to have community collaboration. So these are just a few photos of what we've been doing over the last 90 days, whether it's working with the homeless outreach team, working with the Tulsa Arts District, which is on here, and you see Captain Limrey's on here, so we work with the co-responder Art 2, which he's going to talk about in a minute. Supporting the city of Tulsa by going down in the hole. I don't know if you guys saw this on Facebook too, but going down under a parking lot at 3rd and Cincinnati and finding a big basement under there to clear it out. Or working with faith-based institutions and schools downtown, which is really important that we have a safety plan in case something happens, because those institutions are often soft targets for people who go and commit violence. And then just visibility. The bike patrol, foot patrol, going to the downtown events, getting to know the people who live and work and play in downtown. Because I think we have about 6,000 residents down here now, about that. So it's really growing for permanent residents down here. So downtown's a little bit different than a neighborhood that you can get to know the neighbors in. So really going that extra mile to do the community activities that Downtown Tulsa Partnerships put together. And I always like to end with this and things that you can do, because we do have prevention, enforcement, and prosecution. That's what we try to address crime on all those levels. So here are some ideas of things that you can do to prevent, keeping your things locked up. We have seen an increase in larcenies downtown and burglaries. So keeping things locked up, keeping them well lit, training people, if you have workers, on to do the same, using the escorts, safety escorts, walking into things like that. Enforcement, if you own a business or you manage a business and you need a trespass letter, we can certainly walk you through how to do that, because that means if we know we have that on file, we can take action without you being there. And that's really helped quite a bit. Agreeing to be a victim or a witness. So this is a big thing, because oftentimes people will call the police because they see something, and they think that we can just act on that. But any misdemeanors that do not occur in our presence, other than domestic violence or visible injuries, we have to have a victim. So we need you to sign the back of a citation or do a witness thing or be a victim. Without that, our hands are really tied. And then, of course, helping with prosecution, going to court, which is why a lot of times people don't want to follow through, because they're like, how much time is this actually going to take, and they weigh it out. But we really do need your help if we're going to change the culture of downtown. And then supporting victims of crime. I always bring this up because I feel like sometimes victims are shamed because they call the police or they want to report something that people consider minor. But for our downtown enforcement, no matter how big or small, it's all important to us. So we really don't want, if you need the police, if you're a victim of crime, no matter what that is, or there's a chronic issue that you care about, we can help you with that. And then, of course, serving on jury duty is important. So if you get those notices, do that. And then, of course, who you choose to elect to support public safety. Does anyone have any questions, or do you want to wait till the end of that on Brian? I hope I didn't go too quick. This is my contact information. The best way to get a hold of me is email. I check it constantly. And then Major Honor Sorge is here tonight. He's the commander of the Gilcrease Division. That's his email.
But he says email Shelley.
If it comes to downtown, email me. I will take care of it. Yes, and I always say, I love downtown. I play downtown. Now I work all the time downtown. I don't feel like I'm an official downtowner until I start using the names of buildings instead of addresses. Then I will be an official downtowner. So.
I'm getting very close.
All right, you want to come up?
Have to. All right. Appreciate this. It's so funny. I think that I'm fully prepared to come up here and share information, and every time Captain Seibert has something to say, I'm like, oh, that jogs a memory, and there's something else that I want to add to it. And I think whether it's a result of the things that Captain Seibert was sharing or some of the numbers and trends that I'll be talking about as well, I hope it is as evident to everyone in the room. And I know I see some repeat folks who come to these on a quarterly basis, but I hope it's as evident to you the incredible and drastic changes that have been undertaken with Tulsa Police Department in downtown. There is a level of coordination between TPD, ART, and our own field ambassadors that we've never seen before. These are the types of things that we've been looking for, yearning for, and they've been implemented over the last several months. And I think these are the things that are going to continue driving additional improvements in public safety and community safety for the entire downtown neighborhood. I appreciate so much the work that Captain Seibert does every day, Major Ona Sorge, the entire impact team as well. I will come back to these additional notes that I added. I wanted to provide a quick update before I run into some statistics with you all. A lot of the work that we do as an organization, Downtown Tulsa Partnership, happens regarding advocacy and ensuring that downtown has the resources that are needed to be safe, to be welcoming, to be a thriving economic engine for our entire community. One of those items that we pushed heavily for with Tulsa City Council at the beginning of the summer, and then again over the last few months, was the renewal of the downtown curfew area. This is something that TPD was asking for to combat a lot of the evening issues and weekend issues over in the Blue Dome District in particular, but the problems that exist all across downtown, in part because of some youth-related activities. And that curfew, City Council decided to extend that curfew for 1 year until next October. There will be quarterly reporting requirements between TPD and Downtown Tulsa Partnership going back to the City Council on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis, to talk about the trends, the needs, and whether or not this should continue past next October, be modified in some way, or go away if there's not a need anymore. So again, I appreciate the work that TPD put into all of that. I'm going to take a few moments to run through stats and then additional communications as well. If you did not sign in on the back table here, please, before you leave, do sign in. That is the way that we're not tracking you necessarily, but it's the way that we can follow up, and we will share the slides from today and then any other additional questions and items that come up throughout the course of our, through the course of our dialogue. I show this every single time. This is a very quick overview of our field services that we have. Jacob, our operations manager, is standing in the back of the room right now. He oversees our field team that includes cleaning, beautification, maintenance ambassadors, our safety team, and our outreach team as well, and we'll go through some of those numbers. The number here, 918-202-4944, 4093 is the way to reach them. Calling, text during normal operating hours. You can email service@downtowntulsa.com or go onto our website, downtowntulsa.com. Up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a service request form. Whether it's texting, email, or that form, you can upload pictures, whether it is a person in need, whether it is graffiti, or a mess that needs to be cleaned up. We handle all of those things during our normal business hours. I do not, unfortunately, have printed materials with me today, but you can go onto our website. The slides have a direct link to them as well to download our community resource guide and a looking for meals card as well. And if you are a business and and I'll go back to that. If you're a business and looking for these, you can also email our field operations team to ask for copies of those, and we will make them available to you. Back in September, our organization, in partnership with Housing Solutions, the Mayor's Office, as well as the Tulsa Regional Chamber, pushed out a new part campaign, part strategy, part advocacy effort called Safer Together for Downtown. And if you go to downtowntulsa.com/Safer Together, you'll see the 5 priorities that are listed here. I think next week we have our very first kind of email communication coming about with that'll be directed to downtown corporate businesses and employers and general folks. If you sign up in the back, I can almost guarantee that you're going to get that email as well. We have we're trying to highlight more so the services that we provide, safety escorts, the different hotlines that exist out there, whether it's COPES or the things that we always emphasize, calling 911 when it is needed. For a brief moment here, wanted to showcase some of the statistics that our safety team in the field is undertaking, whether it's 911 calls for police, business contacts, hospitality contacts. You can see a pretty significant uptick in number of times that we are calling 911, both directly 911 and also directly to impact officers and supervisors who are in the field. And this speaks to the increased level of coordination that our teams have working in the field. And this also goes for ART2 team that is out there as well. And several motorist assist, welfare checks, and assisting with people who are being relocated elsewhere. Our team wearing purple shirts are safety, and then kind of the turquoise shirts that Jacob has are the clean team. Outreach as well has been a pretty significant program for the organization and the work that we do in the field. Carly, our outreach agent, unfortunately is going to be moving on to a new role in the coming weeks, and we'll be working to can't replace her directly, but working to backfill that position in the next few weeks as well. But this is tracking the number of outreach contacts that we've had, placements into alternative sources, whether it's hotel, housing, shelter beds that exist within the system and continuum of care, and different interactions that exist. One of the metrics that we use to help measure some of the success the role that we play with the continuum of care is updating records in HMIS, which is the Homeless Management Information System. And it ensures that case managers and case workers working with any individual know that on X date, Carly had contact with Joe Smith over at this area intersection, so that when that person, whether it's a need for a doctor's appointment, a need for an appointment with their own case manager, or if their housing lottery system comes up as well, that there's a better chance that we can locate who those individuals are in the field. As I begin to wrap up, a few additional things that I want to make note of right now. Oftentimes, and Captain Seibert put up on the screen, I think her last slide, about the things that we can do in helping to support community and public safety in downtown. I said it a few moments ago, and I will say it again, utilize 911. We know that the number of reported incidents, what's the term that I'm looking for, that are up in downtown? Cases, incidents, the number of incidents are up, and oftentimes we're seeing trends that 911 calls are decreasing. That's a positive thing on the front end, meaning that TPD is incredibly proactive in the field, ensuring that their eyes and ears are on the streets, that the walking beats are working, bike patrols are working. On the opposite side of that, we as a community need to do our part in order to report crime, whether it is a small nuisance, like Captain Seibert said, graffiti on the wall that helps catch perpetrators and suspects like Mango out there. Reporting to 911, filing police reports are incredibly important. small businesses that exist out there. Where I would also ask that if you are managing or working with frontline workers, a robbery happens, and any sort of even petty crime, working, and when I say compel, I don't mean like force, but work with your frontline staff to make sure that they are working with TPD to file charges if a crime is actually happening. We've run into too many scenarios where I even witnessed it myself once, very recently, that a person was stealing from a business, and the frontline workers were not willing to file charges, and that person was eventually caught on something else. But we need to do our part as a community to ensure that people who are initiating these crimes are taken and going through the appropriate justice system. Mango and illegal tags that are out there. I know that oftentimes many businesses and individuals are falling victim to tagging and graffiti. We support with the mitigation and abatement of that, and that's one thing, but if you're handling it yourself, please take a picture of that and file it with Tulsa Police Department as well, because the more that TPD is able to apprehend individuals like Mango, like what's Boost is another common one that we see, the more records that they have on file, the more likely it is that these individuals that are perpetrating these crimes are going to be held accountable for the damage and property damage that they are conducting. Email the mayor, email the police chief, email your city councilors and say how much you appreciate the investments that have been made in community policing in downtown. We are light years ahead of where we were a year ago, and we need to make sure that as a community we are not letting our foot off of the gas pedal. That just because things are improving doesn't mean that we shouldn't see bike patrols in downtown. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't see walking beats in downtown, and that Captain Cyber and Major Onosaur, shouldn't have the resources that they need to continue doing their job. So they hear from us all of the time when we're angry and irate about things. So make sure that you are doing your part to communicate how much you appreciate the investments and the attention that is being made and paid into downtown. I'm almost done here. Register your cameras with the Real-Time Information Center. The vehicle that was burned over on Boulder Avenue have cameras. I'm not sure actually if they're connected to RTIC, but do everything you can to, whether or not they have live feeds or are just, the police know that cameras exist out there. We're trying to make sure that if crime happens, that it's caught as quickly as possible. And I think one last thing I want to talk about in terms of, it's getting dark earlier outside. We have streetlights in most areas of downtown, but as a business, the best thing that you can do is leave your lights on. Whether you have a storefront, whether you have external building lighting, leaving your lights on is going to contribute to more light on the sidewalks. It creates a safer environment for people walking by, and could mean that it's less likely that someone's going to commit a crime because of additional light that is out there. So a couple of tidbits as I wrap up here. Ways to contact us if you want to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter that goes out on Thursdays. Please, you can scan that QR code over there. A reminder to please sign in at the back of the room. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Chief Lemery to talk about ART2. There you go.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here tonight. I really appreciate you giving up some of your valuable time to be here, and I really think that shows that you care about what's going on and you want to be a part of these solutions. So thank you very much for being here. I'm Justin Lemery, Chief of EMS for the Tulsa Fire Department. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Alternate Response Team 2 tonight. Who has heard of ART2? A couple people? There's some, okay, all right. So ART2 is kind of an innovative model that we deploy here in Tulsa. You cannot look in a lot of communities in America and find something like this, which I think really speaks to the forward thinking that we have here in Tulsa and our passion to try to solve community-led issues or community issues that we're having to face. So this is Michaela Ring right here. She's been an excellent paramedic on the Tulsa Fire Department. And on ART2 for about 3 years now. She's done really great work. But when you think about Alternate Response Team 2, they've got 2 community paramedics on there, along with a COPS clinician from Family and Children's Services. And so those community paramedics are a little bit different than just a nationally registered paramedic. They go receive about an extra couple hundred hours of training in social determinants of health, like you heard Captain Seibert speak about earlier, which really kind of gets down to some of those root cause issues of why someone's calling 911 or why they may be in the situation they're in, whether it be employment, whether it be healthcare services, or transportation, or built environment like we're talking about here. When you really get down there and solve some of those key issues, you can help bring somebody back up and get them on the right path. So these community paramedics get a lot of extra training in that. They also do crisis intervention training, so they learn a lot about communication techniques and how to connect with people. And then you have the COPS clinician. So that was a new add on September 1st. We didn't always have that in R2. But over the years, they've been very successful, and we thought, how can we improve the efficiency of the operation? And that's where we added a COPS clinician. And so that helps connect us to more social services and the ability to do more alternate transportations, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But if I could say one takeaway, and Captain Seibert and Brian already kind of covered this, but we are communicating, collaborating, and coordinating our efforts at a level that I've never seen in my time here in Tulsa. Not that we're a finished product or that everything's perfect, because it's not. But the collaboration between all these groups, between the Tulsa Police Department, who's doing great work, the Downtown Tulsa Partnership, we're talking at levels we never have before. And I think that's going to get good outcomes and good results. So, the intersection of 911. When you think about R2, when we were trying to develop this, is how can we improve the efficiency? It was very important for us from the fire department to improve the efficiency and the response of our operation. And the first part we do that is by sending the right resource. So when R2 responds, they're responding in a truck, not a big fire truck, but the smaller truck that anybody in this room could drive. All right. So when you're thinking downtown, we don't have as many big engines and ladders and all these apparatus driving around the streets. This resource can respond in a much more efficient way and deliver the right care. And so when we talked about earlier about those community paramedics and the clinician, we can deliver the right care to that individual at that time. Who in here knows that every time we call 911, this person doesn't need to go to the hospital every time. Sometimes we can handle that issue in a different way. And when you put different licensures on that response, that's what we're able to do. Very soon, since I talked about R2 being a forward-thinking, innovative model, we're about to be able to do some other medical practices and skills that a lot of other communities cannot do in regards to taking care of some of these chronic medical conditions that I'll talk about a little bit later. To the right place, and that's kind of what I just spoke about earlier. We want the ability and the flexibility to get that individual in that moment to the right facility or destination to help them. And we'll talk about that here in the story that I'm going to share. But we can take to a shelter or to a crisis or an urgent recovery center or a crisis care center, the appropriate destination for that individual at that time. That helps speed up that process of getting someone who may be unhoused the help they need and at the right time. And so what we'll talk about when you think about R2 is they provide direct impact. So when R2 responds, the fire truck doesn't have to. But they also, and so they can take care of that medical emergency, but they also provide indirect impact by getting to those root cause issues of why that person is calling 911 or what that cause is. They prevent future 911 calls and they get that person the help they need. So when we talk about the right time, they're also operating out of the non-emergency environment, not just the emergency environment. So I want to share a story here real quick to exemplify this. This is very new. That just happened this last week. And it really talks about this or highlights this in a big way. So R2 was dispatched to a medical emergency at a local downtown building for a female patient with reported symptoms. Upon arrival, they noticed 3 unhoused individuals sleeping outside that had been sleeping outside overnight. The patient's niece, concerned about her aunt's condition, described her as cold and fatigued, which is the reason that initiated that first call anyways. Cold and fatigue, and that's when they came up on these individuals. As R2's talking, the ambulance, MSA arrived on scene, and they coordinated the transport of this individual because the lady was going to have to go to the hospital, and they wanted to kind of work through some of these issues with those 3 individuals. During the assessment, they learned that there's a 21-year-old niece who is 20 weeks pregnant. and her boyfriend, and they had all been living on the streets after their previous house had sold that they've been renting, and now they were unhoused. The elderly aunt with a long work history, she had been working for 36 years, she was on Social Security, or she is on Social Security, had been renting a house in Tulsa for over 2 decades when the property was sold. So the EMS team arranged for, and they worked with the ambulance, they arranged for this individual, the aunt, to get a social hold at the hospital for a little bit while they worked through these solutions. And they coordinated with the Downtown Tulsa Partnership, the Tulsa Day Center, and they eventually were able to get the pregnant female emergency shelter for the day, and an ID, but she didn't have an ID, so they got them the ID and the emergency housing. While they worked with some other community partners, they were able to get those individuals hotel vouchers for all 3 of them, and ultimately they're coordinating the aunt to assisted living. She has the benefits to get assisted living, and now they're getting her there. They're getting the pregnant female with maternal care. She's not been doing some of the things that she needed to get done, and the boyfriend who was there, they've been working with him still to this day. He's actually getting a job and getting employment. But that all took place through a 911 call. As previously, you say 2 or 3 years ago, that would have been a 911 call. They picked up the lady, they took her to the hospital, and they would go back in service, right? And here we are, the same situation, nobody's improved. In today's world now, the aunt's going to assisted living, the pregnant female's getting the care and the wraparound services with the case manager that she needs, and the boyfriend in this scenario, he's actually got a job interview next week that they worked with him to start working. That's the differences that we can begin to take, and you're seeing in the system now that weren't here before. And so to highlight who we're responding to, and we talk about clarity is power. In a world divulged with a lot of irrelevant information, clarity is power. And so we wanted to know who we're responding to and have a deeper analysis. And when we can respond in the non-emergent setting, we can also find out some of that information. And so for those who don't know, this is all research-based, a lot of physical health, lung diseases, bronchitis, tuberculosis, pneumonia, malnutrition, substance use, wound and skin infections, chronic disease management. They're not managed very well when you're unhoused. And so these drive 911 responses, these drive declining health, and they're not getting the help they need. And so we want to provide that, and when you look at R2, we are providing some of those along the pathway of getting someone housed. Mental health, anywhere approximately diagnosed, 46% have mental health, 25% have a serious mental illness, that if they're not managing that well, they're taking their medications, they're calling 911, and they're not improving their life skills. So that's when you talk about, we have a COPES clinician now from Family and Children's Services. We're able to better address some of those needs with this unit. And this is just some information about when our teams go out, what's getting referred into us. A lot of homeless outreach, medical care necessities. We see a little bit of food assistance, mental health support. These are some of the referrals that are getting sent into us on, hey, this is what this person needs to get on their feet, or these are some of the issues that we're seeing. And this is kind of the age demographics, and about 56% of the enrolled clients in our program are male. This is interesting. When you look at this is a heat map of downtown IDL, 2024 to your left and 2025 to your right. You can kind of see this is a zoomed in view, and these are the darker the color, the more responses. In 2024, we saw a more scattered approach, and this is very zoomed in, but there's a little more scattered approach. You can see 2025, it's kind of been pushed down into this one central area where the shelters and some of these resources are. I think that's a positive, and that's the direction we want to move, is as we're condensing this down and we're getting these individuals, we want them wrapped around these resources and constantly communicating with case managers, with therapists, and what some of these community resources. And so I think this heat map really illustrates that transition care, that movement that we've seen. If I were to show you a broader range of Tulsa, just the whole Tulsa, we have seen some movement, but this really reflects what we've seen the most, and that's more concentrated in certain areas like this where you see the shelters. And so what's happening? This is a great example of the things that R2 does. So they were helping an individual there, and hey, we can't go because we can't get our wheelchairs to that location. And we said, we can help you. And that's what we did. You see them, they loaded up. I don't know if that's an improved strap, but they got a string behind there and tied it down. I promise they didn't go too fast. Our homeless response dropped 52 to 52%. So it's been right around 55 to 58. So we've seen the number of responses in R2 to unhoused individuals has gone down a little bit. Instant transport down to 34%. It was 41% of our clients. So they think that's a positive because that could be a reflection of getting people to the right location more. R2 transport's about 5%. So they've been hanging around this certain number or this number for a little while now. And then wellness and outreach, 652. So that's up. So they perform outreach, which is just simply, hey, it's a really hot day, here's a bottle of water, but they do community wellness checks. So you have hypertension, you're living on the streets, are you taking your medications? Because even along that journey, we want to make sure that we're building that relationship and improving that person's health. And so they do these community wellness checks along with the outreach, which is a unique service we provide. But overall, that's what's been happening with R2. Our vision, and I'm getting to my closing here, is really connected. And I talk very highly of the Tulsa Police Department and Downtown Tulsa Partnership, of some of these partners in the room who really make us come together and catalyze a better product for the city. And I think we're doing that, I know for a fact, better than we ever have in my time on the Tulsa Fire Department. But our vision is this, is really all working together, like you heard in that story, to get people the help they need and improve our community health along the way. If you want to get a scan that QR code, that talks about R2 a little bit more depth. There's just a video about the team. There's my contact information. This is one of the great clients that we helped to get housed in downtown Tulsa. So I will turn it over to Brian if you guys have any questions.
I think this is our time for Q&A, so whether it's for Captain Seibert over here, myself, or Chief Lemery, ask away. I saw a hand right here.
So just real quick, the R2 program is run by the fire department, or is most of the fire department, or is all of the emergency?
Yeah, it's ran by the Tulsa Fire Department. Yeah, we developed August 15, 2023, and it was kind of a pilot, just a couple days a week to see if this was a positive, to which it was. And that's a great question. And ultimately, they said, yes, this is good. And so they moved it to just 7 days a week. And so when we added that COPES clinician September 1st, we're now 7 days a week. Yep, and it's housed out at the Tulsa Fire Department headquarters. What else? What other questions do we have?
Somebody do hand up?
Brian, I just had a question. The stats that you shared, were those for the year or were those for this last quarter?
Got you. My apologies. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
They were comparing the month of October to the month of September. My apologies. And again, we'll send these out after, likely later this week. I'm looking at Daniel somewhere. Martine. Yes.
So the R2 response team, is that something we call, or we just call 911 and you're dispatched from 911?
Great question. That's a great question. You can just call 911 right now. So in downtown area for an emergent response, they're going to be automatically dispatched. So they'll just show up. Now where they are in and around downtown Tulsa, you talk about the bike teams and the foot patrol, they're present around the community like that as well. But then that goes back to what we're talking about. You got Brian's team out there, they know how to contact us, the police department, we're all working together. So if you just go through the traditional systems, you'll get the right resource there, and that's what we're utilizing now. So.
And there's sometimes difficulty figuring out whether something's an emergency. For example, there's a man downtown frequently who's screaming obscenities at the top of his lung for quite a long time, almost on a daily basis. It's not illegal to be mentally ill.
No.
He doesn't seem to really be threatening people, but it's an unpleasant situation. Is that something we call about, or?
Yes, perfect. Yes, so so what would happen if that situation and you saw that individual, you call 911, hey, I've got an individual in the street, they're yelling, and we say, okay, we're going to send 911 resources. What you're probably going to get is our community response team, which is a fire paramedic, a police officer who's CIT trained, and a COPES clinician. They're going to respond to that scene. The benefit they're going to provide is they're probably going to be able to get a lot of information. If that person has any psychiatric history, thanks to COPES in there, they'll be able to pull that information. They may know them, and they may have rapport, and they may know what medications he should or should not be taking. So that team will respond there, de-escalate that. They may take them to that crisis care center. So there's nothing wrong with calling that individual in. There's a good chance our teams will know who they are and be able to help them out.
Can I add one thing and tell me to stop talking whenever I need to stop talking? The greater detail that you can provide when you're calling 911, the better. That you, as an individual caller, can visualize the difference between someone who is in crisis and is screaming at the top of their lungs obscenities, but is doing it to the world or to a tree or to a telephone pole, whereas the call taker may not fully comprehend or understand. So the more detail that you can provide and saying that this looks like it's someone who's in crisis, they are talking to themselves or a telephone pole rather than screaming at another person across the street, or if they are screaming at a person across the street. And I think this is where I may need some help. 911 Center has COPES clinicians embedded in there. They have clinical personnel that are in there to observe and to hear those kind of keywords and terminologies that can help deploy Justin's crew or CRT or another appropriate personnel to all of those things. So I cannot emphasize enough, the more detail that you as a caller, your employees, your businesses, whatever it may be, can provide, the better off everyone is in the long run.
I appreciate that because we really want to make sure we get the right resource there. It's really important to us because we want to make sure that we're responding quickly and in an appropriately amount of time. And so the more information you can give, the better. And then we can get CRT or whoever it is that's needed there. So you said that really well. Good questions. What else?
Is this working?
A little bit.
As we developed CRT, we came up with the idea of the right resource at the right time, every time. And I was thinking about this today because how my roles changed from mental health coordinator to downtown commander, is sometimes the right resource is a police response. And we're highly trained in mental health, especially the downtown enforcement. They're all CIT trained officers. So even if this gets triaged and it slips through and it doesn't go to a co-response team, and it goes to an officer, I have great confidence in their ability to determine if that's a mental health crisis. What we struggle with is substance-induced behavior and distinguishing between that. So sometimes it is a right response at the right time is a police response. And so, and then we troubleshoot that. We get there and say, does this person need to go into crisis care? Do they need to go to greater mental health? Do we need to call R2 all the time, or CRT? And then we can also do that because sometimes calling in outreach workers or mental health professionals and someone's escalated, they may not feel safe. So we do have de-escalation techniques that we can use, and then we can also just co-respond.
Any other questions from the audience?
Is that R2 program, is that just downtown or is that all of Tulsa?
It's just downtown right now. Just really the IDL. They actually bridge just outside the IDL in some locations. But yeah, that unit's dedicated interdispersal loop.
So pretty much downtown.
Yeah. If you think of all the highways going around, they kind of go outside of them just a little bit, especially to the west and south. But yes, that is dedicated to downtown.
Speaking of the IDL, we live downtown and we listen to the racetrack, the IDL racetrack. Is there anything that can be done about, I'm presuming it's motorcycles, but I'm not positive about that. I mean,
Sounds like the Chili Bowl. I live by the fairgrounds, so I hear the Chili Bowl.
Yeah.
Zoom, zoom, zoom.
Well, this is
Yeah.
not the chili bowl.
Yeah, I've heard complaints about that, and I've seen the three-wheelers down here and the motorcycles.
yeah.
So that's, Captain Tippler's back there, she's in charge of our traffic unit. So it's good to hear, I think you probably heard these complaints as well. So it's a matter of when that's happening, who's on duty, and how we can enforce if they're, sometimes those things are just loud, they're just built that way. It's not-
Is there a noise ordinance in downtown Tulsa?
There are certain things where decibel for music at certain hours, but these are not, if they're not modified vehicles, then there's nothing.
Well, most of them
Am I
aren't.
right about that?
Yeah, that's correct. What we've encountered, so we've done this a couple different ways. We've had motorcycle groups where, I'll move over here so you guys, I'll show your text. We've had motorcycle groups where we've been able to disperse them early. So what we figured out where they were meeting, we go and either talk with them or kind of persuade them that this might not be a great idea tonight, and then they kind of disperse. Another way we've combated this would be we kind of have individuals where we know they're speeding through downtown, or we know they're doing something illegal, donuts or whatever it is downtown, where we'll be able to use our helicopter to follow them until they inevitably stop or run out of gas, and we're able to arrest or cite them at that point. And so that's been fairly successful for us, but it's a little frustrating because that takes a lot of time to get one person, right? What we have found is a lot of the motorcycle noise that people hear is from factory motorcycles, so it's not a modified muffler. And so we're not able to cite them unless they're speeding, drag racing, doing donuts, or things like that. So it's a complex issue that we're still trying to grapple with. Oklahoma City has had some success, and so we're also looking to their practices to see what we can do to combat it here. We've been meeting with City Council to see if there's any laws that need to change to assist with that as well. So
About between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. on the IDL, I actually was caught in one of those races. And that's when they race.
okay.
But also.
Also downtown.
Yeah,
midnight.
generally on the IDL, OHP will be enforcing a lot of those laws. We assist them with a lot of that help, but they generally will be enforcing IDL speed limits. But we'll work together to figure out if there's something.
It's quite dangerous
It is, yeah, for sure.
to be in.
The one additional item, IDL, like on the highway itself, I don't know how much, rephrase this. If you are living in downtown, you're visiting downtown, you business downtown, and you're thinking, or every Friday from 10 o'clock until 11 o'clock, 3rd and Boston, or Cameron and Main Street, this is consistently where it is. That may let these two determine if that's a 911 call, or emailing the downtown division to say, hey, these are the consistent times that we have these nuisance-related issues, so that they can adequately deploy resources to help try to combat that.
Yeah, I think for those, the best way to do those chronic nuisance where all right, it's Saturday night, this is going to start, is to email. Because then we can work together at the division to figure out how we're going to address that. Calling in, I don't think calling 911 is.
Yeah, calling 911 would get you an immediate response, but if it's a chronic issue, unless it's the same officer that sees it multiple times, they might not know that it's a chronic issue. They might just think it's someone's birthday and they're celebrating, and so they might not know to let us know about the bigger issues. So
Communication is so key on these nuisance-related items.
Is there a place that if you don't want it downtown, is there a place for these people to be able to
Race
celebrate and drive and race and all that? Whatever they do, is there a place?
on a racetrack.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wonder if that's a fair solution, right? To say,
Good
okay,
idea.
well,
we have done that in the past. We've said,
Okay.
hey, there's other places you can go and race and drag and all that kind of stuff. Most of the time, that's unsuccessful in redirecting them, but yeah, that's something that we also considered. Yeah, good thought.
Any other questions for the group?
I've already come to cyber. It's a little bit about vulnerabilities and populations that are victims. Do we have a sense of, like, is it downtown residents, is it unhoused people, or is it visitors, like, who are victims of crimes or victims of accidents in, like, higher numbers, or?
I don't have it broken down like that. I can just tell you from my experience. I mean, it's a combination of all those, but most of the visitors are not victimized. There's a lot of in the homeless community that are suspects and victims victimizing, and then when it comes to like larcenies from businesses, burglaries, that's the kind of stuff that's happening. Now that we have more and more residents down here, the car that was caught on fire, that was a resident that was parked on the street. So it's a combination of all of those things. But I have been wanting to get those numbers because I think that would be interesting to see who are the victims and who are the suspects. So we have a crime analysis unit. I can't give you the complete stats.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I think we're approaching the top of the hour of this time allocation here. So if there are no additional public questions, I think a few of us may be sticking around for a few minutes afterwards. Please feel free to ask us. But outside of that, I would just like to take a moment to thank Justin and Shelley for their collaboration and their work and coming after after the normal operating hours. And for all of you as well, we've tried to stagger the times of these safety forums, morning, afternoon, evening, maybe we doubled up on one of them, but to make sure that we can accommodate people who have different schedules. So it's likely that we will try to do the same again in 2026. But thank you so much for your time and collaboration and support of downtown.